Hello, and welcome to The Road Ahead. My name is Mary J. Collins, and I'm your host. Today we're discussing income statements or profit and loss statements. Now, we'll start with three lines: the name of the statement, the title of the statement, and the financial period for which the statement covers. This could be a month, a year, or a fiscal period, such as quarter. Let's look at an example. We'll start with the name of the company, which is Love Thy Pet, the title of the statement, which is the income statement, and for the year ended, in this case, December 31st, 2014, which means this statement will cover a whole year's income. Now, we'll move on to our second section, which is the revenue section. In the revenue section, we'll have a section header, which is revenues, and there will be no dollar amount for this in either of the dollar amount columns. Then we will list the revenues, starting with the highest, first revenue, and the dollar amount, and then the second highest and its dollar amount. Since there are only two, we will place a dark underline under the last one, denoting that we're finished, and then we'll place the title, total revenues, and we will add the two revenues together to get our total revenues, and we will place that in the right hand column. Whenever we're subtotaling, we always move those dollar amounts over to the left one column. Now, let's look at an example. Revenues, and we'll start with sales revenues, and we'll place the dollar amount in the left-hand column with a dollar sign for the very first one to denote that we're starting a column. Then we'll do rent revenues and place it directly underneath. Since it's the last of the ones we're adding together, we will place a dark underline underneath it. And then we will do total revenues, where we add the two revenues together, and we will place that amount in the right-hand column. So let's look together. Our first section is the header section, and it gives the information for the company, the name of the statement, and the period. Next will be the revenue section, where we have the header revenue, and then we list the revenues and add them together. Next, we will move on to the third section, which is the expense section of the income statement. Again, we will start with a section header with no dollar amount in either of the columns. Then we will list our expenses from highest to lowest, so as to denote which one is the most and which is the least. We will put a dark underline under the last of the expenses, and then we will total them by adding all of the expenses together, and we will put that total on the right hand column. Again, we have pulled back the other three because we're subtotaling them, and they will go in the left hand column. Let's look at an example. Expenses, the header with no dollar amounts, and then our first expense, which is salaries expense, with the dollar amount and a dollar sign. Next, we will have rent expenses, and it will be less, and it will not have a dollar sign. And then supplies expense, and it will be next with no dollar sign. But since it's the last expense, we will put a dark underline underneath it. And then we will place the title, total expenses, and we will add all our expenses together to get total expenses. So let's look at together. We have the header section of the income statement, and then we have the revenue section of the income statement, and then finally we have the expense section income statement. This will be our completed statement, except for one final calculation, and that is our total revenues minus our total expenses, which gives us our net income. We put a dark underline under total expenses, denoting that we are doing a calculation. In this case, we are subtracting the expenses from the revenues to get our net income. And then we put a dollar sign on the net income, and we add double underlines to denote that we're finished with the statement. So this is the end of the statement. This is what it looks like and how you calculate it. Should there have only been one revenue, we would not have had to pull that section over one column to the left. We would have simply had revenues, listed the single revenue, and placed the dollar amount to the right hand column. But since we had two, we subtotaled it. And anytime you subtotal, you pull the dollar amounts to the left and only place the total in the right hand column. Since our presentation, here are my links for job aids. Here's the instructions for the basic simple income statement. And here's the instructions for a more complicated income statement, which we refer to as the multi-stepped income statement. Thank you for your interest in this, and I look forward to having you view other videos on other topics.